Da 5 Bloods is the latest film from director Spike Lee, whose most recent film BlacKkKlansman is still one of the most impactful films in recent memory. Da 5 Bloods follows a fictional group of Vietnam veterans returning to Vietnam many years after the end of their service in order to recover the remains of their fallen commander, Stormin' Norman. They also happen to be on the search for a large sum of lost buried gold, which was lost in the war with Norman. As the group travels through Vietnam, traumatic memories and the horrors of the war still haunt them. As they are confronted with the impacts of the conflict, they serve for leaders that they didn't believe in. As can often be the case with Spike Lee's filmography, Da 5 Bloods is a confronting film, and of course that's the way it's intended to be. The film is used to depict the horrendous atrocities committed during the Vietnam War from both sides of the conflict, and how those atrocities have severely affected veterans living with PTSD, particularly black Americans who were sent to fight in Vietnam by the US government while their people were suffering back in America, with the death of Martin Luther King Jr. being a significant paradigm shift during the Vietnam War era. So if you choose to watch Da 5 Bloods, be prepared for some confronting, graphic footage and images captured from the Vietnam War, which in true Spike Lee fashion is weaved throughout the film. Some people will absolutely find this content very upsetting, despite how important it is to the film and history itself, and with the means and how Spike Lee is trying to get his message across. Because Da 5 Bloods is a film for right now, especially with the Black Lives Matter protests happening all over the world. What starts as more of a sentimental movie about these war buddies trying to recover their fallen brother in arms gradually evolves into an introspective look into how morally ugly humans can be when divided, especially when money and power come into the picture. The hope of Da 5 Bloods is that love is what will eventually hold people together through all the corruption and madness of the world. Part of what makes Da 5 Bloods work so well is its openness about PTSD, and how we get to see these characters break down over the course of the film, as painful memories and consequences start influencing their actions. Delroy Lindo as Paul does a lot of the heavy lifting in this regard, and he is phenomenal throughout the film. As Da 5 Bloods progresses, we get to see the layers unravel around Paul as he confronts his past, and comes to terms with where his actions and the actions of his government have led him. Paul's incredible fourth wall breaking freestyle in the latter half of the film encapsulates everything about the character and the anger of the film in one fell swoop, and maybe what nets Delroy Lindo some major awards buzz later in the year. Despite this, Da 5 Bloods isn't all doom and gloom, with the typical humour and banter that you can expect from Spike Lee, which is set fairly early on in the film. This definitely helps in warming us up to these characters, before everything starts falling apart with things like minefields being introduced. This balancing act of maintaining some humour with the severity of several scenes can absolutely be uneven, especially in the latter half of the film, which does get a bit too chaotic. I definitely found myself enjoying the first half of Da 5 Bloods more than the latter half, which I thought had lost a bit of the rhythm and magic that existed in the first half, despite the film's incredibly strong ending. Terence Blanchard's phenomenal score absolutely helps in reflecting the moods of the characters in various scenes. One of my favourite aspects of Da 5 Bloods has to be how aspect ratios and colour grades are utilised, particularly the flashbacks, which opt for a box-like 1.33:1 aspect ratio using 16mm film, which helps give these flashbacks that vintage feel. What's even more fascinating is seeing Spike Lee refuse to use any de-aging technology for the older actors during the scenes, having them just as they are in their 60s to replicate them retelling and reliving these stories. Chadwick Boseman as the fallen Stormin' Norman, being the only young actor in the group, just adds that extra layer of tragedy to the character and what he represents. It's a creative move that I honestly wish more directors would embrace, rather than have them spending millions of dollars on de-aging work. Da 5 Bloods isn't a movie that will work for everyone, and it will be too confronting for some to attempt. I do think the film is a little bit uneven, especially the second half, where things just got a little bit too chaotic, and structurally it just didn't come together quite as well as say BlacKkKlansman did. But it is an important movie that should be experienced by those that can stomach it. Da 5 Bloods gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Guys, I hope you like this review. If you want to see more reviews just like this one, stay right here for your mono fix. Bye guys.